Freespace is a 1998 space combat simulator epic, which many starfaring fans consider one of the best of the genre. However, it's less sim and more of a grand thematic shooter, which makes it surprisingly accessible to players. Unfortunately, Freespace is often overlooked by its more impressive sequel, but the original still holds up fine, remaining as an engaging, combat-intensive experience. Set in the 24th century, the game begins with you, a newly enlisted pilot of the Galactic Terran Alliance, fighting in a 14 years long war against the Fasudans, a rival alien power. The conflict has become a deadlock, but this all changes once the Shivans appear and start wrecking your shit. Early on, it's made apparent this is merely a cycle of annihilation, with countless past civilizations being destroyed. Unless you want to join them, Terrans and Fasudans alike must fight in a desperate struggle against an overwhelmingly powerful foe. While Freespace 2 would build on this foundation, there isn't much depth or background information to the game. How humanity developed subspace travel, and even why the war began with the Fasudans, is never really explained. The Shivans? Well, that was all meant for Freespace 3, and that never happened. The story is solid, carried by decent performances and frequent high-quality FMVs that are able to portray the tension and stakes of the conflict, while maintaining a realistic professional tone reflective of the different armies. There's some fantastic scripted moments that blew me away the first time through. When you initially engage the Shivans, they're so advanced you can't even penetrate their shields or even lock onto them, making them totally impervious and reinforcing that sense of helplessness. When you're playing the game normally and all of a sudden a colossal vessel storms right in front of you, it's pretty terrifying, and sometimes all you can do is run away as your allies get slaughtered. It ain't exactly heroic, it's just depressing. The old school grit just makes each fight more important and impactful than the last. Starting up Freespace, you have a pretty sweet animated menu of your hangar. It actually changes depending on the ship you're stationed in, which is an incredible amount of detail. You have a trainer segment whenever a new piece of equipment is introduced. They're unskippable, but they explain how to pilot your ship with ease. After that, you enter a command briefing which details the current situation of the war, general operations, new technology, and major story events, all animated with a slick presentation. I really like it. You then have the actual mission details. Each step of the operation is laid out point by point, giving you a very clear idea of the opposing forces and the various objectives. These are mostly defending larger ships or stations from incoming attacks, or destroying or disabling valuable targets. Of course, plans can easily go awry, so you better learn to adapt fast. Before beginning, you can change your ship and its loadout, but typically the default setup is good enough with maybe a few tweaks in your weaponry. In-game, you fly around to different waypoints, destroy enemy targets, and issue orders to your allies. It's really straightforward, you are just a fighter pilot after all. It's how well the game plays is what makes Freespace great. Think of the game less as a flight sim and more of a 360-degree shooter. I don't own a joystick, so I have to rely on the mouse and keyboard, which seems to work fine. The mouse fires your selected weapons and controls your ship. Various hotkeys increases and decreases your speed, changes targets and weapons, and issues orders to the wingman under your command. This is standard stuff. However, the options to match your speed of your target, as well as how the reticle both displays the target's health as well as where to shoot, makes combat flow wonderfully. You don't have to clumsily fiddle in a firefight, rather you effortlessly move from one enemy to the next in instant succession. This is arguably simplistic, but the result is consistently satisfying gameplay. You're often fighting alongside or against larger frigates and capital ships, which are appropriately intense, with turrets and cannons bristling their outer plating. In these engagements, you may want to target their engines or weapon subsystems to give you a better chance. Disabling a target is much better than engaging head-on. When these ships do break down and explode, you can easily be killed in the ensuing shockwave, making battles that more challenging as you escape the blast. There's other gritty details like your own subsystems being destroyed. If you lose your nav or comms, you'll be completely blind with no way to call for help. Pretty terrifying once you realize you're aimlessly drifting around space. You can restore your subsystems and ammunition through calling a support ship. Speaking of which, your AI buddies are quite capable of following your orders and protecting you, which makes it all the more tragic once they get blown away. Your weapons are a mixture of missiles and energy beams, from dumbfire to lock-on to cluster rounds, though many are impractical or become redundant later on. You can dual fire weapons at the cost of lowering the rate of fire, which is another cool tactical option. Playing Freespace is an experience with some of the most engaging and gripping dogfights, all running at a smooth 60 FPS. Enemies and allied ships are equally maneuverable, and their gunfire and death throws illuminate the battlefield, all the while you get a beat on a target and desperately try to lock on. The dynamic nature of the fights makes them endlessly appealing. It's not all perfect though. For one, the game is quite easy. Yeah, if you die, it's a mission retry, but few missions are actually challenging or threatening to you, and your teammates can easily wipe the floor with the opposition. Too often the game relies on sending small waves of enemies instead of consolidated forces. I assume this was to decrease the strain on PC rigs at the time, but this results in somewhat predictable events. A wing of fighters appear, you destroy them, rinse and repeat. The hardest parts of the game don't involve actual combat or strategies, just poor level structure. For example, one mission has you scanning a bunch of ships and containers in enemy territory. You have no proper weapons or armor, and if detected, you either die or fail the mission. It goes on for far too long, and some of the objectives are impossible and have to be ignored. Even then, you'll mostly get blown up trying to escape. It's very frustrating. Aside from those few issues, Freespace is a great action space sim that's easy to grasp and understand and thoroughly enjoy. I have little issue with recommending the game alongside its sequel. Freespace is available online through GOG and is well worth the low price.